Poe was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts.
Poe was the son of actors, but he never really knew them. His father left the family early on.
His mother died tragically when he was only 3 years old.
When his parents died, Poe went to live with John and Frances Allan.
John was a successful tobacco merchant, and they lived in Richmond, Virginia.
Poe got along well with Frances, but never really messed with John.
Poe began to write poetry on the back of Allan's business papers at a very young age.
Money was an issue for Poe when he attended the University of Virginia in 1826. He did not receive enough funds from Allan to cover all his funds, so he resorted to gambling, which only put him into more debt.
Poe returned home only to face another setback. His neighbor and fiancée, Elmira Royster, had become engaged to someone else.
Poe then published his first book, Tamburlaine and Other Poems, in 1826.
He had also me at this point. Poe wanted to go to West Point, a prestigious military academy, and won a spot there in 1830.
Before heading off to West Point, Edgar Allan Poe published a collection of Alvaroff, Tamburlaine, and Meyer poems in 1829.
Poe was doing very well at West Point,
but he got kicked out after a year for his poor handling of his duties. Some think that he wanted to get kicked out of West Point on purpose, because during this time at West Point, Poe had fought with his stepdad and decided to sever ties with him.
After leaving West Point, Poe decided to focus in on his writings full-time. Poe began to travel the world looking for inspiration, starting in Pennsylvania and moving on to Baltimore, Richmond, and New York City.
From 1831 to 1835, Poe lived in Baltimore with his Aunt Maria Clem and her daughter Virginia. Virginia became a literary inspiration to Poe, as well as his love interest. They got married in 1836 when she was only 13 years old.
Poe returned to Richmond in 1835. He went to work for a magazine called the Southern Literary Messenger. When working there, he developed a reputation for being a vicious, cutthroat critic, writing reviews for his contemporaries.
Poe was overcome by the grief of his wife's death in 1847. He continued to work but suffered from poor health and alcohol abuse and suffered financially. His final days remain a mystery. Poe died in the Washington College Hospital on October 7th, his last words being, "Lord, help my poor soul." Poe's cause of death was said to be congestion of the brain, but no one is fully aware what caused it.
Poe's most famous works included The Raven, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Telltale Heart, Annabel Lee, The Mask of the Red Death, and William Wilson. He even created the genre detective fiction. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's episode of Inside. Today's very special guest, the man we brought back from the dead, the one and only Edgar Allan Poe. Today we'll get the inside scoop on Edgar's most famous poems and short stories, and what contributed to the way of his words as we analyze his influence that is still alive and well even though he is long gone. Welcome, Edgar Allan Poe. Please sit.
Thank you for that warm welcome, but I must say I'm a bit sore after all. I did die 166 years ago. You know, it's pretty light up here. Quite the transition from my cold and dark grave.
Cold and dark? Those are the perfect words to describe your work. Speaking of your work, what do you think made you the writer you are today?
Well, my early life definitely played a role in the sinister and mysterious nature of my writing. I was a disturbed man because of my many tragedies I endured starting from an early age. To cope with my mind, I turned to writing that has influenced people to this day. I owe my success to my troubled life and my disturbed mind. I guess you could say that my work is truly the inside of my mind.
Ah, yes. We saw your life story in an exclusive video biography earlier, and I can definitely see how it affected the content of your work. Now, Edgar, word on the literary street is that you are the most influential American author to ever live. And if I'm being honest, I completely agree with that statement, judging from your influence on us Americans.
Why, thank you, and although I am not one to flatter myself, I do believe that I am the most influential American author, and I came back from the dead to enlighten you all on why this is true.
Please go on.
Well, for starters, let me ask you a question. Have you ever read a horror story or a detective fiction novel?
Of course, who hasn't?
Well, I was the first writer to develop these genres, which later molded into the genres of Gothic mode and grotesque fiction. Without me, all these genres would not be here. Every single piece of literature that falls under those categories are thanks to me.
Can you give us a name of another famous American author that you influenced?
Throughout my career, I have made an ample amount of contributions to the romanticism genre. So any author who falls under that category I have influenced. Take Emily Dickinson, for example. She often wrote about death. Her famous poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, falls under the romanticism genre, which I have influenced. Thus, I have influenced her and her literary work.
Absolutely amazing. Emily Dickinson is surely not the only person you have influenced. In fact, your influence lives on and is expressed in the modern day through all forms of media, such as songs and television series.
Yes, I've influenced shows such as The Following, in which the antagonist has an obsession with me. Without me, that show would not be made possible. I've also influenced many modern-day musicians, like the band Arctic Monkeys, and one of my famous poems are mentioned in the song called You're So Dark.
You're Edgar Allan Poe. You got your own kind of ravens, and you murder a crows.
I think you're forgetting someone.
Yes, how could I forget? Stevie Nicks has a song named Annabelle Lee, where she literally quotes my poem in the lyrics.
That maiden lived whom you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee.
One of my short stories, called William Wilson, has influenced a famous movie called Fight Club. My story depicts a young man named William Wilson who ruins his life only to discover that William Wilson is himself and he can't escape his mind. Fight Club also depicts a man who is convinced that their alter ego is their own person until, in some moment of revelation, discovers that he is his own worst enemy. I believe my short story influenced this movie in some way.
Wow, it is truly amazing to see how your influence has prevailed through all kinds of modern-day art.
It is quite the honor to see how my legacy lives on in such creative ways. Even though my physical presence is no longer here on Earth, I love the way my influence is depicted. The next poem is called Alone. Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From my childhood's hour I have not been, as others were, I have not seen, as others saw, I could not bring. My passions from a common spring, from the some source I have not taken, my sorrow I could not awaken. My heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn, where every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled, in its autumn tinted gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. The charged words in these poems are highlighted in yellow, which include passions, sorrow, awake, love, alone, and torrent. The repeated sound is me, and it's circled in red, and it shows that the poem is from his point of view and it depicts his lonely life and how it has affected him as an adult person he is today. The imagery is in purple, and it paints a picture in your mind that depicts Poe's vivid imagination and gives you an insight of how he views himself and his surroundings. The symbolism is in blue, and it's the whole poem, because the whole poem is a symbol of Poe's lonely life, and his vivid text symbolizes how he sees his adversities. The meaning of this poem is, the tone of the poem is somber and dark, and its meaning is that it analyzes how his tragic childhood plays a role to the person he is today. Everything he loved, he did so alone. His personality resulted from every depth of good and ill. The importance of this poem, Alone, by Edgar Allan Poe, is that it's important because he makes it obvious he is writing about himself and gives the readers an insight and explanation to the dark words he presents to the world. The common thing of being an outsider and the effect it has on people has transferred to all types of literature and art, Poe being one of the first to express it. This poem is influential and timeless, being that anyone can connect to it in some way, shape, or form. Now it is time to analyze one of Poe's most famous poems called Annabelle Lee. Annabelle Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and a many year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and to be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child, in the kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than a love, I and Annabelle Lee. With a love that wings seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in the kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of the cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabelle Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in the kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, when everything when envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in the kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabelle. But her love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many fair and wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever deserve my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabelle. And for the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabelle, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle. And so all the night tide I lay down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, and the sculpture there by the sea, and her tomb by the surrounding sea. The charged words in this poem are highlighted in yellow. These include love, heaven, coveted, chilling, beautiful, bore, night, killing, demons. Repeated sounds and phrases are in pink, and the repeated phrase is in the green, which is in the kingdom by the sea, which is a repeated sound, which is a repeated phrase in the poem. The whole poem demonstrates symbolism and imagery as it paints a picture in your mind of an eternal yet chilling love. The meaning of this poem is to demonstrate how Poe's love for his wife was unbreakable, and it will live on through death, just like Poe's legacy. This poem is so influential because it served as a large impact on the Romanticism unit, being one of the most influential poems of the genre. This poem paved the way for many other poets and led to a great movement. This poem is unique to Poe because although it deals with one of his favorite subjects, death, it in a way differs from his other gruesome works and serves as a twisted farewell to his wife and promises an everlasting love. Annabelle will go down in history.